Mahalo and welcome back to Maebashi Witches episode 2, which we have a lot going on in this episode. Oh my god. This was an intense ride. This is what happens when you don't put an insert song in the episode. But before we get into it, there's a couple of housekeeping we need to do for this episode because I don't know if everybody saw what happened after the credits, which it's very important for you, like you better have seen what happened after the credits to just like fully encapsulate your opinion. And I want to go right to that point, right to this bit right here, because if you missed it, then you might look at this episode differently. So this is definitely starting into Azu's plotline. It looks like she's going to be the first of the 5 girls that we really dig our heels into and figure out what her motivation to being a witch is. Which is the question I had before in the previous episode, is that each of the girls clearly have some kind of desire to become a witch that they kept skipping over. And now it's looking like they're probably going to peel back the reasoning on each of these characters, and now I'm actually very excited. This has turned into like, I watch a lot of murder mysteries, so I love solving the murder mystery part of it before the episode ends, and that's how I feel with this season. I'm like, okay, so they are doing a lot to put little seeds in this show, which is one of the detriments to it going so fast paced and the dialogue running like 1,000 miles an hour. We're learning a lot about these characters, and I think we're also starting to see a lot of foreshadowing of what these characters care about and what their motivations are. But they're going to be plot twists from the looks of it, and I don't know how intense these are going to be. But for our first one, Azu, as we've seen from the previous episode in this one, is that she's very stuck up. And I kind of wondered if it was coming from a place of self-loathing, but specifically when she kept, I should have known from when she kept denying the food, especially when Mai, who also was like, I don't really want to eat your buns, sat there and was like, okay, these aren't that bad. I was like, Azu is still denying eating them. I wonder if this leads back into some kind of self-loathing bit. Is there some kind of like something going on there? And the answer is yes. So for anybody who missed it, one of the reasons why Azu probably said some of the really harsh things that she did likely stems back from her having, which is the other thing. The other thing that I really like about the show is that she has been using magic in order to make herself skinny this entire time, which is making it clear that at least one of her wishes upon being a stronger witch is to look this way all the time. It seems that now that they can only currently use that magic really in that magic space, Azu wants to get stronger so that she can use this magic all the time and make herself look perfect. Or at least, like, look the ideal way that she wants herself to be. And so I feel like we're gonna get that with all the other characters, but let's back up to the beginning. I find it so hilarious that Yuna immediately is like broken after what happened. She like got sassed by Azu at the end of the last episode so hard and so rejected that literally everybody leaves and the lights get turned out because she's so depressed at getting whined at. And low-key relatable, as a chronic people pleaser, I can relate to this a little too much. Which brings us to, like, this gets slipped in too. That when they leave the magical realm and come back to reality, they can use magic to some degree, at which Kerope suggests that they use time magic in order to make sure that the time that they spent in the shop did not pass in reality, so that way their parents don't notice that they've been gone for hours. So they can use time magic. They just, at this level, all of them are really weak, so they don't have a lot of time magic. But Yuna does not care about that, and she doesn't care about the time magic conversation. She's like, Azu hates me. Why? That's really annoying. I don't like being hated. And I kind of like how realistic Yuna's frustration with it is, because I feel like other series, the protagonists tend to either A, not realize they're hated at all and completely ignore it, or B, they get like deliriously obsessed with being like, I'll just be super nice and they'll be my friend. And I feel like both of those categories to me come off as a little too unrealistic. Like, I mean, I definitely know there are people in the world who won't notice when people are mean to you, but like, at this rate, Azu has made it more than clear for a normal human being that she does not like her. And Yuina notices it. So I like that it feels a little bit more realistic compared to the typical anime formula. But here are the things that are like little seeds here. Yuina comes in with new buns and she's like, hey, these have cream cheese, do you want some? And Azu immediately is like, I hate you. I don't like you. You're the worst. This won't work out. Like, I wonder if this is gonna go. I don't know how dark it's gonna get in this series. I don't know if we're gonna get close to like an ED or anything along those lines, but I could see that like if she has this bad relationship with food, that could potentially come up, and that's one of the reasons why she's like has this added hatred towards Yuina. Besides her just like I do think there's a part of her that's just kind of shallow, but I do think there's a lot of self-loathing attached to it. We also begin to talk more about the whole witch process, at which they all acknowledge that they only obtained 3 points from last time, and they need to get to something like, I think, like 30,000 points, which I didn't realize the number was so insanely high. To which they all acknowledge that if they work at the rate that they're working now, it's gonna take them until they're 91. This was kind of just a silly bit. I also like that Kunobe turned into a robot. Like, they got so old that he got replaced by a robot. Oh, this bit was kind of silly. But this also immediately became into a game of me trying to guess what everybody's conflicts are going to be. For example, one thing that I've noticed about Mai that showed up last episode that's made me very curious about her, despite her being very logical and somewhat confrontational or sometimes against the general plan of the group, she also seems to be a little bit of a people pleaser herself. Last episode, when they finished up their arguments, she ultimately sided with everybody else, leaving Azu by herself, and stated that something along the lines that she just kind of goes with peer pressure and she rolls with the crowd. Here they're talking about the best way to handle doing the whole witch thing and how to gather the most points, where they argue taking different shifts so that they can maximize like the amount of energy that people have and cover the most hours. However, Azu brings up the point where she's more nervous about if one person doesn't rack in as much as the others, that might make her hated and people could gang up on her. And I feel like that might be her thing. Maybe her thing is like she got bullied or she has like huge insecurities. And I wonder if her wish is just like to be accepted. I don't know. I think hers is very, very interesting. And I saw way more Mai than I thought we were, because I feel like she was kind of just there last episode. She has a pretty strong presence in this episode. Choco, I'm still on the fence about what Choco's could be. Because the only thing that Choco really gives us this episode that I caught was that she's actually talked to Yuina about how much she doesn't actually want to be, like, the dumb one of the group. I wonder if she's, like, the kind of person who seems all sunshine and rainbows, but actually is very depressing and putting on a front of some kind. So I think there's a lot of potential where they're going with Choco. Kyoko, on the other hand, I think has been very interesting with where she lands on this episode and what could potentially be her situation. Because we get a lot out of her character for this one. One, she makes a comment that when we get the new uniforms, that she appreciates that they cover more skin than the idol outfits do. Which I'm like, is that just her being shy, or is there something more there? What's going on? Is this a sowing a seed of some kind? I don't know. Can I read more into that, or am I going too far? Also, I think these outfits are really cute. I like them a lot. We also learned that Choco has never worn traditional clothes. See, this is me, like, sitting here like a detective, like, oh, so Choco's never worn traditional clothes. What kind of background does she have? Has she been is she a city girl? What's up with that? But overall, everybody but Azu ultimately decides to wear the uniform, with Azu stating that she doesn't want to wear things that she deems ugly. And now that they're all uniformed, and also they are officially announced to no longer be in tutorial mode, they are now set off on having to do this themselves. They must attract customers somehow, and they must grant wishes somehow. And Yuina does this cute little bit where she just starts reciting like Karata poems to like hype everybody up. And after a little bit of banter, Yuina decides that she'll take action. She's been inspired by Azu's berating to create something that will help the cafe out. And that ends up being a poster, which makes sense for me. I assumed that they would do something where they would hang out on the streets and hand out something, so the poster felt like the most natural way to continue this plotline. At which point our two crews split up. We have our more warm color-coded girls head out into the city, while Azu and Mai stay behind. And then there's this whole bit that they do where if they leave the shop, they can't re-enter through that way, which, first of all, I'm like, why? Other than, like, Keropi just being, like, a bit of a tease. I also wonder if that's, like, a method. If this is gonna be, if they're, like, the writing reason why they're doing this is so we have an excuse to go into everybody's houses. They ultimately utilize Kyoko, who lived in the nearby area, as the excuse to like go into her apartment and then get back. I wonder if that's like if this is that intention behind here. Like every time they leave, they're like, "Oh no, I guess we have to go walk through somebody's house and get to know them and sow some more seeds of foreshadowing." I don't. It's interesting. I'm totally psychoanalyzing this way too much. They also pass out the flyers, and this well-designed lady is obviously going to be our next victim of wish granting we go through here. And very quickly we see that she is a model. So they lay that stuff on pretty thick. We can figure that out. They drop this hint pretty big, so it's not like this was not hidden. And while they're venturing out, they talk about how like the strip mall, shutter mall situation, a lot of the stores are closed and not a lot of people are there. I don't know if that's something like that's some detail about Maebashi that we need to know about, where like in-person stores are going out of style. I don't know what kind of commentary they're making in that regard, but it is something that is pointed out. The other thing that they dive into, which was the conversation piece I brought up last episode, is the fast fashion conversation, which I have mixed opinions on how they handle it, because I think the conversation of fast fashion is incredibly nuanced, and it's very hard to have a strict answer on it. And the series covers it to a degree, but also I don't expect shows like this to be phenomenal at covering something like fast fashion, just because specifically the anime industry has a huge history of collaborating with like Shein and Temu. Like even my favorite, Cardcaptor Sakura out here, has had a Shein collaboration before. Like the anime industry is not really the place I'm looking to have an actual decent conversation about fast fashion by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like that they kind of acknowledge it. Mind you, it's very brushed over. But you do have Azu, who earlier had talked about how Yuina has garbage fashion sense and has like very, very cheap clothing. To which we do have both Mai and Kyoko stand against. Like, Choco doesn't say too much in this, but both Mai and Kyoko are like, Mai doesn't say much after that, but Kyoko does go into the rant that I'm kind of glad is stated here, which is the fact that while, like, somebody like Kyoko is like, I do not support fast fashion whatsoever, I also don't support the idea that hating somebody doing fast fashion on the basis of classism, which I agree with. Like, that's my biggest thing that I had a problem, is, like, Azu's gonna hate that she does fast fashion because it's not, like, high-end fashion, which high-end fashion in itself is kind of a joke to some degree. But at the same time, fast fashion has a huge history of exploitation in so many different ways, both for the workers and for the environment, which Kyoko does acknowledge. She acknowledges in a singular sentence, but does acknowledge, like, the level of exploitation that occurs with a lot of fast fashion. But she also calls Azu out for the classism issue. So I'm not super sure if I'm happy that this series really sped run the conversation, but at the same time, they're speed running every conversation. I don't know. They handled it as well as they're going to, and they acknowledged, I guess, the key points. But at the same time, on a personal level, I'm definitely not on Yuina's side. I'm not somebody who's on Azu's side either, but like, I'm definitely not going to be like, yeah, fast fashion, because somebody like Yuina does not need to participate in that at the end of the day. She does not need a new piece of clothing every 10 minutes. But on the flip side, they do go visit a store that's more of a high-end store, and the girls kind of have fun trying on different outfits, which is pretty cute. While in the meantime, you have Mai and Azu debate why Azu is the way that she is. And I like that the two of them have that conversation, because Mai and Azu on so many levels are very similar, as well as being kind of the cooler toned characters with their color palettes. It's nice to have the two of them talk and talk about how they're similar, but where they diverge. Mai ultimately doesn't want to stand out in the crowd and cause too many problems, and she doesn't want to cause unnecessary friction in the group. On the other hand, Azu does not care at all. One of the things we also learn is that Mai didn't like the outfit, and that's the reason why she didn't want to go out, and not so much that she hates the girls, which I wonder if she's somebody who is more concerned about the way people view her than she does the way she views other people. I wonder if she doesn't even have it in her to hate the other girls, just because she's more concerned about not being isolated from the group. I don't know, I think it's going to be really interesting what ends up happening. I think Mai's a very interesting character. In the meantime, on the way back, I will say for like the last bit that they talk about the fast fashion issue in this segment, the closest thing it kind of gets to good enough resolution for me is Choco ultimately compliments Yuina for being herself, and that she doesn't need to have to rely on fast fashion to be the cute, trendy girl that she wants herself to be, which I thought was really sweet. And also something that Yuina consistently talks about this entire time that they're out passing out posters is how much she's enjoyed and had a lot of fun with this, and how much everybody's been nice to her. Specifically, Kyoko and Choco have both been incredibly nice to her, to which she's not used to that. And even Choco's like, girl, what? Has no one been nice to you before? So, unsurprisingly, I think Yuina has thus far the most transparent backstory for her, which is she just kind of wants friends, and that she's been trying to fill this void of finding a happy moment with a happy group. So, wishing her the best on this journey of friendship with the group, but they're kind of clicking into place rather quickly, and I feel like the biggest person that they're going to have to, like, the final boss of friendship is just Azu, and I feel like they're doing the thing where they're taking on Azu's plot line fast, like, in the beginning, rather than have her be the last character we need to deal with. So I assume that Azu's conflict will resolve next episode, but we'll see. I assume she'll be the character who's like, fine, I guess I'll tolerate you, Yuina. I assume that's how that's gonna go by the end of it. I don't expect her to have a complete 180, but I think they'll reach some kind of resolution next episode. Back to Mai and Azu. Mai, it seems actually really good at being personable when it comes to customer service. Like, Azu cannot for the life of her put on a front. That girl is 100% just like mean and nasty the entire time. She can't even in front of the customer be nice, so she just kind of shuts up. But Mai actually like puts on this smile and is very helpful, which again, I feel like this is just her low-key showcasing that she's doing what she's got to survive in whatever environment she's in. And as we said before, our plus size model is going to be our target for this episode and debatably next episode. But look how happy Mai is. Like, she's so bright and cheery. Like, so, like, she really put on the role very quickly. I did not really think she had it in her. Also, it's cute to see them, like, do these poses when it's just the two of them. I was curious if they'd be able to do a breakdown song, which I'm still not fully sure if they need to have all 5 of them there to perform, or if just in this episode it's because Azu had a sour attitude and she was just the one constantly ruining things. I don't know. And then let me theory craft here. I have, like, a really, like, crazy theory. So we ultimately, again, I think the reason why they weren't allowed back into the series, not so much, like, the intention of Kerope, but the intention of the writers was to have them go check out Kyoko's home, which we learn that she lives at this, like, really, really fancy apartment. No idea what her family situation is, if she's living alone or not, but she's, like, at a fancy apartment, carpeted halls, concierge, the whole nines. Also, she's got a gaming chair. Do you see this gaming chair in the corner? Like, I want us to look at the gaming chair. Like, they very distinctly drew a gaming chair. But I wonder, in the in terms of Kyoko, wild theory, but if they're trying to do something crazy and also something that's kind of been done before, I wonder if Kyoko's bit, specifically with her archetype, honestly, this, if they could surprise me, this could actually be Choco's bit, is I wonder if it might go down the path of her actually being a boy, and that her desire to be a witch is so that she could do something along the lines of, like, change herself physically into being a girl. I wonder if they would go down that route, because that's technically speaking been something they've done. Like, Zombieland Saga had a similar plot line in that terms, except for, like, minus the magic and stuff. But, like, gender is not something that is all that surprising to be a conversation in an Idol series. They've also had a little bit of a gender conversation in, like, the original Love Live. So it'd be cool if it was one of the characters. If one of the characters ultimately really wanted the magic in order to change something about them circumstantially like that. But I wonder if that's one of the reasons why somebody like Kyoko would be more nervous about more skin showing. It would be so interesting to see where they go with that, if that ends up being one of the plot lines. Like, just trying to see how interesting they can go, because I feel like the one that they have with Azu is it's a deep plot line, and it kind of, like, it throws itself, but I wonder if each plotline they're going to try to top themselves, and if we could, like, that could be, like, one of the last ones would be Kyoko's, if that was the direction it went in. Again, also, Choco or Mai could also be that plotline too. But, like, not saying that gamers can only be men as a gamer, but I'm curious if that's supposed to be, like, a quote-unquote hint. I don't know. I think there could be different there could be a very interesting plot they could go down. And then we culminate into the final bit of this episode, which is Azu revealing that she hates specifically our grantee of the week. And I think the way that she says that I literally had to rewatch it to pick up on what she said, because before she like leads with "I hate fat people," which is like, whoa, Azu, what did we do? You don't say stuff like that. What are you doing? Like, really, really harsh words at the end of the day. But Azu says something even more interesting, which is you feel conflicted at this point and you want to take the easy way in order to get skinny. Which I do wonder if she knows something that we don't. I wonder if she knew the model prior to their encounter. I assume that if she's somebody who's really like into the fashion world, I assume that she would be aware of models. So I assume she would have known who this woman was to some degree. But then again, they asked Ketope who she was, so maybe not. But saying something like trying to take the easy way to get skinny, I think is a very interesting line. I wonder if like she's trying to get a surgery and Azu doesn't agree with that, even though Azu in some ways is quote unquote taking the easy way out by using magic to make her skinny. But again, I feel like that feels in like it feeds into her self-loathing that she's got going on. I don't know. I have more questions than anything else at the end of this episode. And obviously I think some people don't like this episode specifically because, like, Azu says some really nasty stuff. And again, I think a lot of people did not watch that last scene and thought, wow, Azu's just really nasty. And I'm like, she is nasty. Don't get me wrong. She'd be saying things she's not supposed to say. But we do know that it comes from this self-loathing. If anything, the person that she hates the most in this situation is herself. So I don't know if she like viewed this model as somebody she looked up to because she was a plus size model, and then seeing her like do something, some kind of surgery maybe, makes her be like, man, I hate fat people on the grounds that like they all don't want to be fat, or they're not happy with the way they are, and like I'm trying to be happy with the way I am, but I'm not. I don't know how they're going to flip this next episode, just because the choice of words has been very interesting. But I can't imagine that this series is going to go in the direction of like fat people are awful. Like I don't remotely see it going that direction. I think the only thing that I probably will criticize this series for, if they don't like, if this is probably going to be the way it is, especially since the models are made and everything, I assume that this being Azu's true appearance, that they're probably not going to let Azu look this way the whole time, and they're just gonna have her be skinny the whole time, which is such a bummer if that's the case. But I can't imagine with all the promotional materials they have and this being a plot twist and everything, it'd be really cool of them to be like, JK everybody, we have a second version of everything, and she's going to embrace the way she is, and we'll have her be her realistic weight, and she's going to love who she is moving forward. I don't see them going that direction from a technical standpoint, but I would really like it if they did. I think it would be much better story-wise if they did that. You know, if you're gonna have this whole conversation about weight and a character who's been using magic to suppress her weight this entire time, I think it would be better if they commit to her, like, accepting herself and then having her be, like, one of the first time we'll ever see a true, like, somewhat plus-size character in an idol series, where every other one you just have every character just be the same base model cloned 1,000 times. I'm looking at you, Love Live. It's the same base model for all of the girls. We did not change anything but the hair. It'd be impressive if they did that. I don't think they will. I don't think any anime is really gonna sit there and actually tackle this plotline the way they should. But I do assume that they'll have some level of like, you should love yourself, Azu. But either way, I assume this will get mostly finished next episode. Whatever's going on here, they'll try to wrap it up, and I think that's where I'm going to hold my judgment, is how they conclude this, not so much how they began it. And then I also assume that Azu won't be like a complete 180 nice bestie girl, even if they conclude her plotline. I assume she'll still grow over the course of these 12 episodes to be someone who's a little bit more of a friend. But I'm very curious, like, I think next episode's gonna be a huge make or break for, like, taking on this plot line and, like, coming in with a heavy hitter right off the bat. And honestly, if anybody else has some crack theories, if anybody else wants to join me in the weird theory camp for, like, what you think the other girls' storylines are, please let me know. Please let me, like, if you notice some detail about what other characters say and, like, might be a hint as to what their particular desires are, oh my god, please nerd out with me. Please come up with some crazy theories. But until next time, bye bye!